I'd seen the empty safe less than 10 minutes ago before Yeonjuan walked into the room, and now his presence was making it hard to breathe for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. The air changed first. Conversations died mid-sentence. My father's security detail straightened so fast their jackets strained against their holsters. Even the wedding planner, who had been frantically whispering into her headset, went pale and silent. Then he appeared in the doorway. Tall. Black suit that moved like smoke, face carved from something colder than marble. But it was the way he looked at the room that hit me first. Like he was cataloging every person, every exit, every potential threat in the span of a single breath. My heart slammed against my ribs. Heat flooded my skin. I hated my body for the reaction, hated that I couldn't control it. But I kept my feet planted, and my hands steady on the folder in front of me. His gaze swept the room and landed on me, held. My throat went tight. Every instinct screamed to look away, to make myself smaller, invisible, the way I'd perfected over years of being my father's ghost employee. But I'd spent the last 30 seconds staring at the evidence of my sister's betrayal, at the theft that shouldn't exist, and something in me refused to flinch. Sophie Chase. His voice was low, controlled, and it landed somewhere below my stomach. Not a question. A confirmation. Yes. I was proud my voice didn't shake. He moved into the room. 2 men followed, silent, dangerous, flanking, but I couldn't look at them. Yeonjuan took up all the available air. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell the rain on his coat and the danger radiating off his skin. You're aware of the terms. It wasn't a question either, but I answered anyway. I am now. The wedding wasn't supposed to be mine. 24 hours ago, I'd been in my basement office in the senator's Georgetown estate, systematically destroying the career of a journalist who'd gotten too close to my father's foreign donor network. I was good at it. The invisible work of erasing evidence, planting counter-narratives, making problems disappear. I'd been doing it since I was 19. I'd been invisible even longer than that. The illegitimate daughter. The black girl who didn't quite fit the Chase family Christmas cards. My mother, the senator's mistress, had died when I was 8, and I'd been absorbed into the household the way you absorb a stain. Acknowledged but never celebrated. Useful but never valued. Chloe was the golden child. Blonde, polished, groomed for cameras and galas. She wore designer gowns while I wore sensible pantsuits. She attended fundraisers while I scrubbed the donor databases for irregularities. She was the face. I was the fixer. So when my father announced Chloe's engagement to Yeonjuan, head of the Yeon Syndicate, international arms dealer, the man they called the silencer, I did what I always did. I stayed in the shadows and made sure the paperwork was clean. The marriage was transactional. Juwon needed legitimacy for his operations. My father needed funding for his presidential run. Chloe got a ring the size of a marble and didn't ask questions. I should have known it wouldn't hold. The morning of the wedding, I woke to screaming. Not the joyful kind. The kind that makes your blood crystallize in your veins. I found my father in Chloe's bedroom, staring at an empty closet and an open safe. His face had gone the color of wet concrete. One hand pressed to his chest where his heart was trying to kill him. "She's gone," he wheezed. "Everything. She took everything." I moved past him to the safe. The bearer bonds were missing. The backup encryption drives. The USB containing his private correspondence with foreign nationals. The kind that could end careers or start wars. When? My voice was steady, even though my mind was calculating trajectories, probabilities, survival rates. Security logged her leaving at 3 a.m. He sank onto the bed. 400 million, Sophie. She took 400 million in liquid assets. I turned to look at him. Really look at him. The senator. The man who'd built an empire on charm and lies. He was 72 years old, on his 3rd round of heart medication, and absolutely terrified. Not of losing the money, of what Juwon would do when he found out. "You have to fix this," he said. "You're good at fixing things." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Papa, this isn't a donor scandal. This is breach of contract with a man who—" "I know what he is," his voice cracked. "That's why you have to fix it. Tell him she's sick. Tell him we'll reschedule. Buy me time to find her. There is no time. The wedding is in 2 hours. Then stall him." I stared at my father. At the man who'd kept me useful and invisible for 26 years. The man who'd taught me to be indispensable by making sure I was never quite family. How? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I saw it in his eyes. The calculation, the same cold math I'd learned from him. If Juan needed a bride to seal the deal, and Chloe was gone, then there was only one other Chase daughter, the expendable one. An hour later, standing in that cathedral vestry, the echo of my answer, "I am now," hung in the air between Juan and me like a threat. His eyes narrowed fractionally. The tattoos on his neck shifted as he tilted his head, and I caught another glimpse of the symbols. Something serpentine, something that looked like it had been carved rather than inked. Now? I kept my hands from trembling through sheer force of will. I'm not my stepsister. I don't know what deal my father made with you, but I didn't make it. I found out about this wedding 97 minutes ago. Sophie, my father's voice cracked across the room. He was slumped in a chair near the altar, face the color of old newspaper. Don't make this worse. Don't? I didn't take my eyes off Juan. Papa, I'm not the one who made this. I'm just the one who has to survive it. Juan moved closer. 3 steps that ate the distance between us. He stopped at arm's length, and even with space between us, I felt the heat radiating off him. Explain, he said. The original agreement named Chloe as collateral for your business arrangement. I swallowed hard. But an hour ago, Chloe disappeared. She didn't just run. She emptied 3 offshore accounts and took the encryption keys to my father's private server. Silence dropped like a guillotine blade. My father made a small sound that might have been a death rattle. Juan's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his stillness. The way water goes still right before it freezes solid. And you think that makes you a suitable replacement? I think I'm the only person in this family who knows where the real money is hidden. I kept my voice level, clinical. Chloe ran with the obvious accounts. I know about the ones she didn't find. It was a gamble. A massive, potentially fatal gamble. Juan studied me. I felt his attention like a physical weight, impossibly focused. Then he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. You're clever, he said softly. That's dangerous. So is making arrangements with people who run when things get complicated. I shouldn't have said it. Every survival instinct screamed at me to shut up, to make myself small and harmless. But I was so tired of being invisible. His smile widened fractionally. He turned to look at his men. Out. The room emptied in seconds. Then we were alone. Juan moved to the window, looked out at the cathedral gardens where guests were gathering. Your sister, he said quietly, took $400 million in bearer bonds, 3 sets of authentication codes, and the personnel files for 17 senators. He turned to face me. She also murdered my half-brother. The words hit like bullets. What? Julian Yeon. Found in his apartment this morning with a bullet in his head and your sister's fingerprints on the gun. He paused. He was her real target. The money was insurance. My stomach dropped. I didn't know. I know. His voice was flat. Your father kept you useful and ignorant. The perfect little crisis manager who cleans up messes without asking why they exist. He crossed the room and stopped close enough that I could see the exact shade of his eyes, dark amber, almost gold in the candlelight. Here are your terms. You marry me. Today. You move into my home. You help me find your sister and recover what she stole. And you do exactly what I tell you. When I tell you. And my father? Protected. Medical care. Legal shield. His business continues under my oversight. He gestured dismissively. I don't need a senator. I need leverage. I processed quickly, looking for traps. And after we find Chloe, that depends on what we find. Not good enough. I need guarantees. His mouth curved fractionally. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then you're not in a position to use me as bait. I held his gaze. Because that's what this is. You want Chloe to think she's won. You want her close enough to expose herself. The silence stretched between us like razor wire. What do you want? My father's protection regardless of what we find. I swallowed hard. And boundaries. This is a business arrangement. I'll play the role. I'll help you hunt Chloe. But I'm not. Heat flooded my face. I'm not property. Something flickered in his expression. Not anger. Interest. Noted, he said softly. Anything else? If we find proof my father's innocent in Julian's death, you clear his name publicly. Agreed. I want it in writing. Juan pulled out his phone. Already prepared, he said, turning the screen toward me. Contract language. Clean and cold. Everything I'd asked for. I should have been terrified. Instead, I took the phone and read every clause twice. Then I signed my name. Juan's smile was slow, predatory, entirely satisfied. Welcome to the family, Sophie Chase. The cathedral bells began to toll. The ceremony lasted 8 minutes. The priest spoke too fast, tripping over words like he wanted to finish before something exploded. Maybe he sensed what I did, that Juan's patience was a finite resource, and we were burning through it. I barely heard the vows, something about sickness and health, richer and poorer, promises that tasted like ash. Juan's hand was warm when it took mine, his grip firm but not crushing. When he slid the ring onto my finger, platinum, flawless, clearly prepared in advance, I felt the weight of it like a shackle. You may kiss the bride. Juan's gaze met mine, held for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then he leaned in and pressed his mouth to my forehead. Brief, chaste, almost gentle. It felt like a promise and a threat wrapped together. Done, he said quietly. The priest fled. The witnesses scattered. My father tried to approach, but one of Juan's men intercepted him with the efficiency of a border wall. Juan's hand settled at the small of my back, possessive, inescapable, and guided me toward the side exit. The car is waiting, he said. I didn't ask where we were going. I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. The drive was silent. Juan sat beside me in the back of a black SUV with windows so tinted the world outside looked like it was drowning. He didn't touch me, didn't speak. Just stared at his phone screen with the focus of a man reading execution orders. I counted the minutes by the rhythm of my pulse. 15, 20, 30. When we finally stopped, I expected Manhattan, a penthouse, something with views and marble. Instead, we were on the Hudson waterfront in a neighborhood that looked like it had been forgotten by urban renewal. The building in front of us was a fortress, literally. It was a converted pre-war armory, all thick concrete walls, industrial steel beams, and narrow slit windows that looked less like architecture and more like defensive positions. No glass, no charm, just brutal, oppressive mass designed to keep the world out. The iron hold, Juan said, opening his door. Home. I followed him across the gravel lot. The air smelled like brine and rust. Security cameras tracked our movement with mechanical precision. The entrance was a steel door that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. Juan placed his palm on a biometric scanner. The locks disengaged with a sound like bones breaking. Inside was worse. The main hall was cavernous. 30-foot ceilings, exposed iron beams, concrete floors that echoed with every footstep. Industrial lighting cast harsh shadows. Everything was gray and black and cold. It felt like a bunker. It felt like a tomb. 2 men appeared from a side corridor. More security, more silence. Juan spoke to them in Korean. His voice clipped and efficient. They nodded and disappeared. This way, he led me through a maze of corridors. Each one narrower than the last. Each one darker. I lost track of the turns, the doors, the sheer oppressive weight of concrete pressing down. Finally, he stopped at a heavy door and pushed it open. The master bedroom. It was massive. Sparse. A king bed dominated the space. Dark sheets. Industrial headboard that looked like it was bolted to the wall. Heavy blackout curtains covered the narrow windows. A steel wardrobe. A concrete accent wall. No softness. No warmth. Just a room designed for function, not comfort. Juan moved to the wardrobe and pulled out a small black case. Your phone. I handed it over without argument. He opened the case and dropped my phone inside, then locked it with a biometric seal. You don't leave this building without me. You don't contact the senator. You don't speak to anyone outside this organization without clearance. He pulled a tablet from his jacket and held it out. This is your access to the syndicate's secure network. Use it to find your sister. And if I don't? He stepped closer. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Then you're just a liability, Sophie. And I don't keep liabilities. The threat hung in the air between us. I took the tablet. Good. He turned toward the door. We share this bed. We don't share a life. It's for optics. My people need to believe this marriage is real. Where are you going? To handle the fallout from your sister's mess. He paused at the threshold. There's food in the kitchen, security on every floor. Don't test the perimeter. Then he was gone. The lock clicked. I stood in the center of that cold, concrete room and felt the full weight of what I'd signed. I was married to a man I didn't know, locked in a fortress I couldn't escape, hunting a sister who'd tried to destroy us both. I should have cried. Instead, I opened the tablet. The interface was military grade, encrypted, segmented, layered with security protocols that would have made the NSA jealous. But I was good at this. Better than good. I'd been breaking into secure systems since I was 16. I found the main directory within minutes. Personnel files, financial records, shipping manifests. Everything needed to run a global criminal empire. But there was another partition, locked behind biometric encryption I couldn't crack. I tried anyway. 30 minutes later, the screen flashed. Access denied. Then a new window opened. A dossier. My dossier. Sophie Amara Chase, born the 14th of September 1999. Mother. Dr. Amara Chase. Deceased. Father. Senator William Chase active. Education. Georgetown University. Computer Science and Political Theory. Graduated summa cum laude. Employment. Unofficial Crisis Management Consultant for Senator William Chase. 2018 present. Known aliases. The Ghost. Specialty. Digital Forensics. Reputation Management. Evidence Elimination. Threat Assessment. High. Recruitment Priority. Critical. I stared at the screen. Juan didn't take me as a substitute. He targeted me. He'd known who I was. What I could do. He'd engineered the entire situation to recruit me. The marriage wasn't a hostage situation. It was a job offer wrapped in a wedding ring. Rage hit me like voltage. I was out of the bedroom and down the corridor before I could think. I didn't know where I was going. Just followed the sound of voices until I found a steel door marked private. I shoved it open. Juan's office. It was a cage of a room. Steel desk. Tactical monitors covering one wall. Weapons locker in the corner. And Juan, standing at the desk with that same cold focus. He looked up when I entered. Didn't seem surprised. You found it. You lying bastard. I threw the tablet onto his desk. You knew. This whole time, you knew exactly who I was. Yes. That's it, just yes? What did you expect? He moved around the desk, deliberate and unhurried. You're the ghost, Sophie. You've been cleaning up your father's messes for 8 years. You're brilliant, ruthless, and invisible. Exactly what I need. I'm not a tool you can just... You signed the contract. His voice was quiet, lethal. You agreed to help me find your sister and recover what she stole. I never said I'd do it alone. This isn't help. This is manipulation. This is survival. He stopped in front of me. Your sister murdered my brother, stole $400 million, compromised 17 senators, and you think your father kept you in the dark out of love? I flinched. He saw it. Pressed the advantage. Your father was selling you, Sophie. The same way he sold your mother. The same way he sold every woman who got too close. He leaned in. I didn't manipulate you. I saved you. By trapping me here? By giving you a choice. His jaw tightened. Stay with the senator and become his next transaction, or work with me and burn the entire system down. I stared at him. At the brutal honesty in his eyes. Find my money, he said softly. Find your sister, and I'll give you your freedom. What if I want freedom now, then walk out? He gestured to the door. The gate is open. You can leave any time. My pulse spiked. You're lying. Test me. I turned, walked to the door, pulled it open. The corridor beyond was empty. No guards, no locks. I could run. I looked back at Juan, at the man who'd bought me, targeted me, claimed me, at the man who'd just given me a choice my father never had. I closed the door. His smile was sharp. Satisfied. Smart girl. I didn't sleep that first night. Couldn't. The bed was too big, the room too dark. And Juan, when he finally came to bed at 4 a.m., moved through the space like a shadow, silent and controlled. He didn't touch me, didn't speak, just stripped down to a t-shirt and dark pants and slid under the covers on the far side of the bed. The mattress didn't even dip. I lay there in the darkness, hyper-aware of every breath he took, the heat radiating from his body. The way the sheets moved when he shifted, it was torture. By dawn, I gave up pretending to sleep. I found workout clothes in the wardrobe. Men's sizes, but they fit close enough, and escaped into the corridors. The iron hold was different in daylight, still oppressive, still brutal, but the narrow slit windows let in shafts of weak morning sun that cut through the shadows like blades. I wandered without direction, found a kitchen that looked industrial, a war room filled with monitors and maps, a library that smelled like gun oil and old paper. Then I heard voices, low, familiar, coming from below. I followed the sound down a narrow staircase that spiraled into darkness. The air grew colder, thicker. The smell of sulfur and cordite hit me before I saw the space, a firing range. Underground, massive, with reinforced walls and target arrays that looked military grade. And Juwon, he wasn't alone. The woman was blonde, tall, wearing a red dress that had no business being in a concrete bunker at 7 a.m. She stood close to him, too close. Her hand on his arm, her mouth near his ear, laughing. Something hot and vicious twisted in my chest. Jealousy. I hated myself for it. Hated that I cared. We weren't a real couple. This was a transaction, a business arrangement, but my body didn't get the memo. I stepped onto the observation deck above the range. The metal grating under my feet clanged. They both looked up. The woman's smile widened. Juwon's expression didn't change. "Sophie," he said, "come down." It wasn't a request. I descended the metal stairs, each step ringing like a death knell. When I reached the range floor, the woman turned to face me fully. She was beautiful. Delicate features, sharp eyes, lips painted the exact shade of fresh blood. "So this is the new Mrs. Yun." Her voice had a slight accent I couldn't place. Russian? Eastern European? She looked me over with the precision of a sniper acquiring a target. The ghost herself. I've heard stories. I doubt they're flattering. She laughed. "Oh, honey, in our world, flattering gets you killed. Competent keeps you breathing." She extended a hand. "Elena Volkov." I didn't take it. "Who are you?" "His handler," she said simply. I looked at Juwon. "Handler? CIA." His voice was flat. "Elena runs the operation to dismantle the syndicate's nuclear arms division from the inside." The world tilted. "You're a double agent. Surprised?" Elena's smile was sharp. "Your new husband isn't just a warlord, sweetheart. He's a government asset. Has been for 3 years." I processed quickly. "The marriage, the contracts, the—" "All real," Juwon said. "The syndicate can't know I'm compromised. You being here sells the legitimacy. So I'm cover. You're a partner." He moved closer. "Elena coordinates the federal side. You handle the digital forensics. Together, we find Chloe, recover the assets, and dismantle the trafficking ring she's running." "Trafficking?" My voice cracked. "Your sister wasn't just laundering money, Sophie." Elena's expression hardened. She was using Juwon's shipping routes to move people. "Children. I thought I might be sick. Chloe. My perfect golden sister. The girl who'd never broken a rule. How long?" 2 years, Juwon said. "Since Julian started going soft, questioning the operations. Chloe seduced him, got access to the roots, then killed him when he discovered what she was doing." The room spun. I need a minute." "Take all the time you want," Elena said. "But know this. Your sister put a hit on both of you. She thinks you're weak, controllable. She's wrong." She walked past me toward the stairs, then paused. "Welcome to the war, Mrs. Yon." Then she was gone. Juwon and I stood in the echoing silence of the firing range. "You should have told me," I said finally. "You wouldn't have believed me. Try me." He studied my face, then nodded. "Okay." He moved to the weapons locker and pulled out a Glock 19. "You want the truth? Here it is." He ejected the magazine, checked the chamber, handed it to me. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Learn to survive." He moved behind me, adjusting my stance. Feet shoulder width, knees soft, elbows locked but not rigid. His hands settled on my hips. Heat flooded my skin. His chest pressed against my back. Solid, warm, close enough that I felt every breath he took. Breathe between the heartbeats, he murmured near my ear. The space between one pulse and the next. That's where you pull the trigger. I couldn't breathe at all. His hands moved to my arms, adjusting my grip. Fingers over mine, guiding. The gun felt heavier than it should. Warmer. Focus, he said softly. Target downrange. Clear your mind. Feel the weight. I felt nothing but him. The heat of his body, the calluses on his palms. The way his voice dropped when he spoke close like this. Intimate and dangerous. Now, I pulled the trigger. The gun kicked. The sound deafened. The target downrange didn't move. I'd missed completely. Again, he didn't move away, didn't step back. Just adjusted my stance fractionally. His thigh against mine. His breath warm on my neck. Don't fight the recoil. Absorb it. Let it move through you. I tried again. Closer. Still off center. Better. His voice was low, almost gentle. You're thinking too much. I'm thinking exactly enough. His laugh was a rough sound against my ear. Liar. He was right. I wasn't thinking about the target. I was thinking about the way his hands felt on my skin. The way his voice did things to my pulse. The way I wanted to turn around and fire, he said. I did. The shot hit center mass. Perfect. He stepped back, taking all his heat with him. Again. 10 rounds. All center mass. Why are you doing this? Teaching you to shoot? Teaching me anything. I turned to face him. You could have left me ignorant. Kept me as decoration. His expression was unreadable. Because ignorance gets you killed, Sophie. And I didn't go through all this trouble just to lose you to something preventable. The words landed harder than they should. I raised the gun. Fired. Again. Again. Each shot finding its mark. When the magazine was empty, Juan took the weapon and studied the target. You're a natural. I'm motivated. Good. He looked at me with something that might have been respect. Because your sister's coming for us. And when she does, I need you ready to pull the trigger. 3 days later I found her. Not Chloe herself. She was too smart for that. But her digital signature. A pattern in the VPN traffic that matched her behavioral profile. She was accessing dark web markets from a specific IP address in Queens. I brought the data to Juan in the war room. He was studying tactical maps with 2 of his lieutenants. Hard men with harder eyes who looked at me like I was a problem they hadn't solved yet. Found her, I said. Juan dismissed them with a gesture. They left without argument. Show me. I pulled up the analysis on the main screen. VPN exit nodes, metadata patterns, transaction timestamps. It's a fortified safe house, former textile factory. She's been there for at least 48 hours. How certain are you? 93%. I highlighted the correlation matrix. Her patterns are consistent. Shopping for false documents, new identities. She's planning to run. He studied the data with the focus of a man planning an execution. We move tonight, he said finally. I'm coming with you. No. Yes. I met his gaze. I'm the warranty, remember? If I break, the deal is void. You need me there to verify it's actually her. This isn't a surveillance operation, Sophie. It's a breach. There will be gunfire. Then teach me to keep my head down. His jaw tightened. You're not trained. I'm the only person who knows Chloe's tells, her patterns, the way she thinks. I stepped closer. You want her alive so she can lead you to the trafficking network? You need me there to talk her down before your men put a bullet in her. The silence stretched. Then he nodded once. Gear up. We leave in 2 hours. The safe house was in a part of Queens that looked like the city had given up on it. Abandoned warehouses, rusted chain link, streets that hadn't seen maintenance since the 80s. We approached in 3 vehicles, black SUVs with tinted windows that screamed federal operation. Juan rode with me, silent and focused, checking weapons with the efficiency of ritual. He'd given me a vest, lightweight Kevlar that fit under my jacket, a comms unit, and a knife. If it goes wrong, he'd said, you run, don't fight, don't play hero, just run, and I'll find you. I hadn't argued. The factory loomed ahead. 4 stories of broken windows and graffiti, but the perimeter was too clean. Motion sensors on the fence, cameras at the corners. Chloe had fortified it, Juan signaled. His men moved like shadows, splitting into teams, breaching positions at 3 entry points. I stayed with Juan. He cut the fence with bolt cutters that didn't make a sound. We slipped through the gap and moved toward the east entrance. A loading dock with a rusted door that looked abandoned. It wasn't. Juan tested the handle. Locked. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Magnetic override. The locks disengaged with a soft click. We were in. The interior was a maze of concrete pillars and industrial machinery left to rot. Our footsteps echoed despite our attempts at silence. Juan moved with his weapon raised, scanning corners. I followed close enough to feel the heat of him, far enough not to interfere. We cleared 2 floors. Empty, abandoned. Then gunfire erupted from above. Juan shoved me behind a pillar as bullets tore through the space we'd just occupied. Concrete exploded. Metal screamed. "Stay down," he ordered. He returned fire with controlled bursts. Professional, efficient. 2 shooters on the 3rd floor catwalk dropped, but there were more. They poured down the stairs. Armed, coordinated, too well trained to be Chloe's people. This was a trap. Juan realized it the same moment I did. He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the east exit. We ran through the killing field of machinery, bullets tracking our movement. 1 shot grazed Juan's shoulder. Blood bloomed through his jacket. He didn't stop. We hit the stairs to the main office level. Juan kicked the door open and swept the room. Empty. But the walls. Oh God. The walls. They were covered in surveillance photos. Juan's routines. His properties. His people. Blueprints of the Ironhold. Detailed dossiers. Chloe had been hunting him for months. And in the center of it all, a message scrawled in red paint. "Wrong, sister. Appa." Juan's face went hard. Then the building shook. Explosion. Lower level. The factory was rigged. We ran. Down the stairs, through the smoke, past bodies and debris. Juan's hand locked around mine, pulling me through the chaos. We made it to the SUV as the building collapsed behind us. The drive back was silent except for my ragged breathing. Juan drove one-handed, his wounded shoulder leaving blood on the steering wheel. He didn't speak, didn't look at me, just drove like the devil was chasing us. Maybe he was. When we finally pulled into the Ironhold's garage, I was shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Chloe had tried to kill us. My sister, my blood. She'd baited us, trapped us, tried to bury us in that factory. Juan killed the engine. Turned to look at me. "You did good," he said quietly. "I almost got you killed. You kept your head, didn't panic. That's more than most trained operatives manage." He reached for the door handle, but I stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Your shoulder. It's nothing. It's bleeding. I've had worse." But he didn't pull away when I leaned closer to examine it. Didn't move when my fingers brushed the torn fabric. "We need to clean it," I said softly. His eyes met mine, dark, intense, something shifting in their depths that made my pulse spike. "Later," he said. His voice was rough. "First, we figure out how she knew we were coming." The words broke the spell. I pulled back, nodded, but as we walked into the Ironhold, his hand found the small of my back again. Possessive, protective, and I didn't pull away. The triad leader was a man named Wei Zhang. 60-something, silver hair, slicked back with product that caught the light like oil. Expensive suit. Brioni, probably. That couldn't hide the violence in his eyes or the way his hands rested on the table like a man perpetually ready to reach for a weapon. He'd requested the meeting. Neutral ground. An underground speakeasy in Chinatown that smelled like opium and old money, and the particular musk of men who dealt in flesh and fear. Juan had wanted to refuse. I'd heard the argument 2 nights ago through the bedroom door. Elena's voice crisp with tactical assessment. Juan's low and dangerous. Both of them circling the same problem from different angles. But Wei Zhang claimed to have information about Chloe's whereabouts. Information he'd only share face to face. And we were running out of leads, out of time, out of the kind of patience that kept people breathing. So we went. I wore black. A dress that Elena had provided after spending an hour studying my measurements with the focus of a military quartermaster. Simple on first glance. High neck, long sleeves, hem that hit just above the knee. But the fabric moved like water, expensive enough that it whispered wealth with every step, cut precisely enough that it suggested a woman who knew her value and wasn't negotiating. My hair pulled back in a sleek bun that made my cheekbones sharp, my jaw severe. Minimal jewelry except for the platinum wedding ring I couldn't remove even if I'd wanted to, and I didn't want to. That revelation had hit me somewhere between the firing range and the factory raid. Somewhere between learning that Juwon had protected me for a decade and watching him take a bullet meant for both of us. The ring wasn't a shackle anymore. It was a declaration. "You don't speak," Juwon had instructed in the car, his hand resting possessively on my thigh as the city blurred past tinted windows. "You sit. You observe. You let them think you're decoration." His fingers had tightened fractionally. "And if they threaten you, I deal with it." The words had been quiet. Final. The tone of a man who'd burned cities before and would do it again without hesitation. I'd covered his hand with mine, threaded our fingers together. "We deal with it," I'd corrected softly. His eyes had met mine in the darkness of the car, something fierce and possessive, and almost frightened flickering in their depths. "Sophie, together," I'd said. "That's the deal now." He'd pulled me across the seat and kissed me hard enough to bruise. Hard enough that I'd tasted desperation underneath the control. When we'd broken apart, his forehead had rested against mine. "If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does..." His hand had cupped my face. "You run. You don't look back. You survive." I'd kissed him again. Softer. Slower. "We both survive," I'd whispered against his mouth. "Or neither of us does." Now, walking into the speakeasy with Juwon's hand at the small of my back, I felt the weight of that promise settling into my bones. The speakeasy was a cave of brick and velvet. Low lighting, jazz playing too soft to cover the tension. Private booths separated by heavy curtains. Wei Zhang sat in the back booth with 4 guards. He smiled when we approached. All teeth, no warmth. "Ah, the silencer." He gestured to the seats across from him. "And his beautiful new wife, please." Juwon's hand on my back guided me into the booth. We sat close enough that our thighs touched. Wei Zhang poured wine from a bottle that probably cost more than most cars. "Rare vintage. Celebration of your marriage." He poured 3 glasses, pushed 2 across the table. Juwon didn't reach for his. I followed his lead. Wei Zhang's smile tightened. "You insult me with suspicion. I insult you with intelligence." Juwon's voice was flat. "You work for Senator Chase. Anything you tell me is compromised." "I work for profit." Wei Zhang sipped his wine. "The senator's presidential run is finished. Your wife's sister made sure of that when she murdered Julian Yun and stole your money." I felt Juwon tense beside me. "Where is she?" Juwon asked. Wei Zhang smiled. "That information has value. Name your price." "The senator wants loose ends tied up." He looked at me with eyes like oil slicks. "Starting with the bastard daughter who knows too much." The words landed like bullets. Juwon's hand moved to his weapon. His guards moved simultaneously. We were outgunned. 5-2, and I didn't count. Wei Zhang laughed. "Peace, Yun. I'm simply the messenger. The senator wants her gone. I'm here to facilitate." He raised his wine glass in a toast. "To business." That's when I smelled it. Under the wine's bouquet. Under the tobacco smoke and aged wood. Sharp, chemical, bitter almonds. Cyanide derivative. The wine was poisoned. Not both glasses. Just Juwon's. The one Wei Zhang had poured first, while his hand had been hidden beneath the table. My mind raced. If I warned Juwon, Wei Zhang's guards would open fire. We'd die here. But if I didn't, Juwon would drink the poison and die anyway. I made a choice. I reached for Juwon's glass before he could, lifted it. "To business," I said, and I drank. The wine hit my tongue. Sweet, rich. Then the chemical burn underneath. It slid down my throat like acid. Juwon's eyes went wide. "Sophie," I smiled at Wei Zhang. "It's excellent." Then the poison hit my system. My vision blurred. My pulse spiked. The room tilted sideways. I heard Juwon roar. Heard the table overturn. Heard gunfire and screaming. Then everything went dark. I woke to pain. My throat burned. My chest felt like someone had driven nails through my ribs. Every breath was glass. But I was alive. The room came into focus slowly. The master bedroom. Heavy curtains drawn, fireplace crackling, and Juwon. He sat in a chair by the fire, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. He looked wrecked, dark circles under his eyes, blood on his shirt, his own and probably others. He hadn't slept. Maybe for days. "You're awake." His voice was rough, broken. I tried to speak. My throat wouldn't work. He was beside me in an instant, pressing a glass of water to my lips. "Small sips, don't rush." The water helped. Barely. "How long?" I managed. 3 days. He set the glass down with hands that shook. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. The antidote." I burned Chinatown to find it. His eyes met mine. I killed Wei Zhang with a dinner knife and tortured his chemist for 14 hours before he gave me the formula. "You burned your cover." "I don't care." The words came out savage. "You drank poison meant for me, Sophie. You almost died. I saved your life. You shouldn't have had to." His hand cupped my face. Rough, gentle, desperate. "You're not supposed to be the one taking bullets. I'm not taking anything." I leaned into his touch despite myself. "I'm making choices. Stupid choices. Strategic choices." My voice was getting stronger. "If you'd died, I'd have lost my only ally. The contract would be void. I'd be alone with the senator hunting me." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "And if you'd died?" The question hung between us. "Then you'd have lost your strategist." His laugh was rough, broken. "Is that all you are? A strategist? What else would I be?" He didn't answer with words. He kissed me. Not like the ceremony. Not chaste. Not gentle. Deep, possessive, desperate. His mouth claimed mine with the hunger of a man who'd thought he'd lost something irreplaceable. His hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back, taking everything I'd give and demanding more. I should have pushed him away. Should have remembered this was a contract, a transaction. Instead, I pulled him closer. My hands found his shoulders, his neck, his hair. I kissed him back with 3 days of fear and fury and something I didn't want to name. He tasted like whiskey and violence and desperation. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Why?" I whispered. He rested his forehead against mine. "Because I've been watching you for 10 years. Because your mother saved my life when I was 17 and starving on the streets of Seoul. Because I forced this marriage to protect you from your father, not to use you." I pulled back to look at him. "What? The men I killed?" His voice was quiet. "The ones whose tongues I cut out? They were the senator's people. The ones who talked about selling you the same way they sold your mother. My mother didn't die in a car crash, Sophie." His jaw tightened. "Your father traded her to the syndicate to pay a gambling debt. She saved me first, hid me in her medical clinic, fed me, got me documents. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I'd protect her daughter." The world tilted again. "You've been protecting me. For 10 years. He cupped my face again. "I've been dismantling your father's network piece by piece, killing the men who threatened you, watching from the shadows while you grew into someone fiercer than I ever imagined." His voice dropped. "I didn't force this marriage to trap you, Sophie. I forced it to save you." The fire crackled. I stared at the man who'd bought me, claimed me, protected me, the man who'd just burned his cover to keep me alive. "Show me," I said softly. "Show you what?" "The tattoos." I touched his collar. "Show me how far they go." His eyes darkened. Then he pulled off his shirt. The tattoos covered him. Not just his neck. His shoulders, his chest, his arms, Korean script mixed with serpents and smoke. Characters I couldn't read but felt in my bones. "This one," he said, touching his shoulder. "The date I met your mother. This one." His ribs, the promise I made her. "This one." Over his heart. "Your name," hidden in the characters. Sophie Amara Chase, inked into his skin for 10 years. I traced the letters with shaking fingers. He caught my wrist, gentle. His pulse hammered against my palm. The barriers crumbled. I kissed him again. Slower this time. Deeper. My hands explored the landscape of his body, scars and ink and muscle and heat. He lifted me carefully, mindful of my injuries, and settled me in his lap. His hands found my waist, my hips, my thighs. Not rough, reverent, like I was something precious he'd fought to keep. Sophie, he breathed against my mouth. If you want me to stop, don't. The word broke whatever restraint he'd been holding. He kissed me like a man possessed. Mouth, jaw, throat. His hands mapped my body through the thin fabric of my nightgown, learning every curve, every hollow. I arched into him, wanting more, needing more. His mouth found the hollow of my throat, teeth grazing, tongue soothing. I gasped his name. He pulled back fractionally, looking at me with eyes gone molten. Tell me you want this, he said roughly. Not because of the contract, not because you're grateful. Tell me you want me. I want you, I whispered. God help me, I want you. He stood, lifting me with him. Carried me to the bed like I weighed nothing. Laid me down on dark sheets that smelled like him. Then he covered my body with his. The rest was fire and shadow and the sound of my name on his lips like a prayer. I woke to sunlight, real sunlight, not the weak gray that usually filtered through the iron-holed slits. Someone had opened the blackout curtains, and morning poured through the narrow windows in shafts of amber and gold that cut through the perpetual shadow of the fortress. Juan was still beside me, one arm wrapped around my waist, his breathing deep and even. His body curved around mine like he was protecting me even in sleep, one leg tangled with mine, his face buried in my hair, asleep. I'd never seen him asleep. He looked younger like this. The brutal lines of his face softened by rest, the perpetual tension in his jaw finally released. The tattoos on his shoulder were visible above the sheets, dark ink against golden skin, the characters that spelled my name sitting directly over his heart. I traced them with gentle fingers, the brushstrokes, the deliberate placement. He'd carried my name on his body for 10 years. 10 years of watching, protecting, waiting. His eyes opened, dark amber catching the morning light, going from sleep soft to alert in the space of a single breath, then softening again when he saw me. Hi, I said softly. Hi. His voice was rough with sleep, deeper than usual, intimate in a way that made my stomach tighten. How do you feel? Like I drank poison. His expression tightened immediately. Sophie. I'm joking, mostly. I shifted closer, pressing my palm flat against his chest where his heart beat steady and strong. I'm sore, tired, but alive, because you're stubborn, because you burned Chinatown for the antidote. I tilted my head back to look at him properly. How many people did you kill? His hand slid up my spine, warm and calloused and impossibly gentle. Does it matter? Yes. Wei Zhang, his 4 personal guards, the chemist who mixed the poison after I convinced him it was in his best interest to cooperate. He paused. 3 triad enforcers who tried to stop me from leaving with the formula. That's 9 people. 10. His jaw tightened. Wei Zhang's second wife was there. She pulled a gun. Did she hit you? No. The word was flat. Final. I understood what it meant. What he'd done. I would have burned the entire city, he said quietly. Every building. Every street. Everyone who'd ever looked at Wei Zhang without spitting. His eyes met mine. I would have salted the earth and made it a wasteland if it meant keeping you alive. The words should have terrified me, should have made me pull away from the casual brutality, the complete absence of remorse. Instead, I pulled him closer. I kissed him with the desperation of someone who'd looked death in the face and chosen to spit in it. His mouth opened under mine, hot and hungry, his hand fisting in my hair as he rolled us over, pinning me beneath his weight. I gasped against his lips. The movement pulled at injuries not quite healed, a sharp reminder of poison and pain. He froze immediately. I'm hurting you. No. I wrapped my legs around his waist, locking him in place. Don't stop. Sophie. My name was a groan against my throat. You need to heal. I need you. The honesty of it surprised us both. His forehead dropped to mine, his breath coming hard and fast. You have me. You've had me since I was 17 and your mother made me promise to protect you. His voice dropped lower. But somewhere between that promise and now, protecting you stopped being enough. I started wanting you, needing you, dreaming about you in ways that had nothing to do with debts or honor. Show me, I whispered. His laugh was rough, broken. You're injured. I'm alive. My hands found his face, tracing the brutal angles. Because of you. So show me. Sophie, please. The word broke whatever restraint he'd been holding. He kissed me again. Slower this time. Deeper. His hands mapped my body through the thin silk nightgown Elena had brought during my recovery, learning every curve, every hollow, every place that made me gasp. I arched into him, needing more, needing everything. I believe you. We lay there in the morning light, tangled in sheets and each other. Tell me about my mother, I said finally. His fingers traced patterns on my skin. I was 17, starving. The syndicate had just killed my parents for failing to pay protection money. I was alone in Seoul, trying to survive. What happened? I collapsed outside a medical clinic. Your mother found me. He paused. She could have called the police, turned me over to the authorities. Instead, she hid me in the supply closet, fed me, treated my wounds. For how long? 3 months. She got me documents, new identity, arranged passage to New York. His voice was quiet. She asked for nothing in return. Just made me promise that if she ever needed help, I'd come. But she didn't ask for help. No. She died 6 months later. He pulled back to look at me. Your father told everyone it was a car accident. But I had people checking. There was no accident, Sophie. She was alive one day, gone the next. He sold her. To pay a debt to the Triad, the same organization that wanted you dead 3 days ago. I processed that. My father traded my mother for money. And then kept you around because you were useful. Juwon's jaw tightened. I've been watching you since you were 16, tracking your father's operations, eliminating the men who talked about you like you were merchandise. The tongues. I cut them out personally. He said it without remorse. They were discussing your value, your price, how profitable you'd be in certain markets. My stomach turned. How many? 12 men over 8 years. You've been protecting me this whole time. His hand cupped my face. I owed your mother a debt, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being about her. It became about you. His thumb traced my lip. You're brilliant, Sophie. Fierce, dangerous. You fix problems that would destroy most people. You survive in shadows and don't apologize for it. He leaned closer. You're everything I didn't know I needed. I'm a crisis manager with trust issues. You're a queen who doesn't know her own power. The words hit harder than they should. I kissed him. Soft, then deeper. When we broke apart, I said, my father needs to pay. He will. Not just pay. I want him destroyed. I want everything he built burned to the ground. Juwon's smile was sharp. Savage. Then we burn it together. The war room was cold. Always cold. But that morning, with the revelation of my mother's murder still raw, with Juwon's confession still echoing in my bones, it felt like a tomb, like something designed to house the dead rather than the living. I'd spent the last 18 hours breaking the final encryption on my father's private server. Juwon had given me access to military-grade decryption tools, software that technically didn't exist, algorithms that would make cryptographers weep, and I'd used every technique I knew, every trick I'd learned in the shadows. At 4 a.m., the system cracked. The Ledger of Souls wasn't hidden in some elaborate digital fortress. It was just sitting there, password protected with my mother's maiden name spelled backwards. Like my father had wanted to remember what he'd done. Like he needed the reminder of his own sins every time he opened the file. I found the Ledger of Souls. It was a spreadsheet, methodical, clinical, the kind of formatting you'd use for inventory management or quarterly earnings reports. Each row a transaction, each column a detail, names, dates, amounts, destinations, status updates. My mother's name was on line 47, Dr. Amara Chase. Delivered to Zhang Wei. Triad. Payment. $500,000 debt forgiveness plus $200,000 cash. Status. Fulfilled. Fulfilled. Like she was a package, a commodity, a problem solved with paperwork and a wire transfer. I read the entire ledger. 53 entries spanning 20 years. Politicians' daughters who'd threatened to talk. Journalists who'd asked too many questions. Witnesses who knew too much. Mistresses who'd gotten inconvenient. All sold. All delivered. All by my father. And at the bottom, a new entry. Not yet fulfilled, but scheduled, detailed, complete with delivery instructions and contingency plans. Sophie Chase. Delivery to Viper Cartel via Chloe Chase, Intermediary. Payment. $15 million cash plus unlimited campaign funding, plus removal of competitor candidate. Delivery date. Post-election. November 2025. Special instructions. Subject has high-value skill set. Recommend intact delivery for maximum ROI. My father had planned to sell me to Chloe, my own sister. Not just sell. He'd negotiated premium pricing for my skills, had written clinical notes about my value like I was livestock being appraised for auction. I sat in that cold room and felt something inside me break, not shatter. Breaking would be too loud, too dramatic, too much like the emotional displays he'd always punished me for. This was quieter, colder. The death of whatever love I'd once felt for the man who'd raised me. The final severing of a bond that had been fraying since I was 8 years old, and realized he looked at me differently than he looked at Chloe. Not with love, with appraisal. Juan found me an hour later. He didn't speak. Just read the screen over my shoulder, his hand settling on my neck, thumb stroking the pulse point there like he needed the reminder that I was alive, that I was here, that I was his. Then he said quietly, "What do you want to do?" I stared at the ledger. At the proof of my father's sins, laid out in neat rows and columns, at the evidence that would destroy him completely. "I don't want to fix this," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "I don't want to bury it or spin it or make it disappear." His hand tightened on my neck, grounding me. "I want to be the scandal that ends him." His hand settled on my shoulder. "I want to be the scandal that ends him." I looked up at Juan, at the man who'd protected me in the shadows, who'd killed for me, who'd burned his cover to save my life. "The senator's hosting a victory gala tonight," I said. "Presidential campaign launch. 500 guests. Live media coverage." Juan's smile was slow, dangerous. "Then let's give them a show." He pulled me to my feet, turned me to face him. "You understand what this means? Once we do this, there's no going back. Your father will be destroyed. Your family name will be scorched. You'll be free," I finished. "I'll be free." His eyes searched mine. "And us? What about us?" This started as a contract. He stepped closer. A transaction. But somewhere between the cathedral and this moment, it became something else. His hand cupped my face. "I don't want a contract wife, Sophie. I want a partner. An equal. Someone who stands beside me in the daylight and the shadows." His voice dropped. "I want you. All of you. Not because of debts or promises, but because you're the only person I've ever met who's as ruthless as I am and somehow still has a soul worth saving." I touched his face. The sharp angles, the brutal beauty, I want that too. He kissed me, deep, claiming. "When we broke apart," he said, "then let's burn it all down." He walked to the weapons locker, pulled out a Glock 19 and a magazine, extended them to me. "The gala is tonight. Your father will be there. Chloe will be there." He loaded a round into the chamber. "And you're going to end this." I took the gun, felt its weight. "Together," I said. His smile was sharp. "Together." We spent the rest of the day planning. Elena arrived with tactical support. 3 teams, federal backing, surveillance equipment. The plan was simple. Elegant, brutal. We'd crash the gala, broadcast the Ledger of Souls on every screen, let the world see exactly what Senator Chase had built, and then we'd let justice decide his fate. Or we would. As the sun set, I dressed for war. White dress. The same one from the cathedral. But this time, I paired it with blood-red lipstick. Combat boots under the hem. I looked like a ghost. I looked like vengeance. Juan found me in the bedroom. He wore all black, tactical vest under his jacket, weapons concealed but accessible. He looked at me like I was a weapon he'd forged himself. "Ready?" he asked. I checked my gun. Loaded. Safety off. "I've been ready my entire life." He pulled me close. Kissed me hard. "Then let's go make headlines, Mrs. Yon." The car ride to the gala was silent. I counted my heartbeats. Slow, steady, controlled. I'd spent 26 years being invisible. Tonight, I'd make sure the entire world saw me. We pulled up to the hotel. Valles, red carpet, cameras flashing. Juan's hand found mine. "Together," he said again. Together, I echoed. We walked through those doors like we owned the world. And by the end of the night, we would. The ballroom was a cathedral of excess. Gold chandeliers dripped from 30-foot ceilings like crystallized wealth. Red carpet, the color of arterial blood, ran through the center of the room, flanked by tables draped in white linen and centerpieces that probably cost more than most people made in a year. 500 guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, champagne glasses catching the light, conversations humming with the particular frequency of people who believed they mattered. My father's victory gala, presidential campaign launch, the culmination of a lifetime of lies wrapped in patriotic bunting and strategic photo opportunities. I paused at the entrance, letting the moment breathe, letting them see me. The white dress from the cathedral hung differently now. I'd had it altered, taken in at the waist, the neckline adjusted to show the hollow of my throat where Juwon's mouth had been hours before. Blood-red lipstick, combat boots hidden under the hem because I'd learned the hard way that heels were a liability in a firefight. My hair pulled back so severely it made my cheekbones sharp as blades. My dark skin luminous against the pale fabric. I looked like a ghost. I looked like a reckoning. Conversations died in waves as we moved through the room. The black girl who'd been invisible for 26 years, walking in on the arm of the man they called the Silencer, both of us moving with the synchronized precision of predators who'd chosen their hunting ground. Juwon wore all black, tactical vest hidden under his jacket. I knew, because I'd helped him dress. Watched him load weapons with the efficiency of ritual. Seen the cold focus settle into his eyes. The transformation from the man who'd held me in the firelight to the warlord who'd killed 9 people to keep me breathing. Senator Chase stood near the podium, holding court with donors and sycophants. He saw us approaching, and his face went the color of old concrete. One hand pressed to his chest where his heart was trying to kill him. Sophie. His voice cracked across the space between us. "What are you—" "Hi, Papa." I smiled. It felt like showing teeth. "I hope you don't mind." Juwon and I decided to attend after all. My father's aide materialized at his elbow, whispering urgently. Security moved fractionally closer, but Juwon's people were already in position. I'd watched them deploy over the past 6 hours. Elena's federal team mixing with Juwon's enforcers, creating a net that looked like normal gala security but tightened like a noose. The senator forced a smile for the watching crowd. "Of course. You're always welcome. Though I wish you'd called ahead. I wanted it to be a surprise." I looked past him to the screens mounted on either side of the podium. Massive displays meant to show campaign footage, patriotic montages, the carefully curated image of Senator William Chase, man of the people. Elena had hacked them 3 hours ago. They were primed, waiting, ready to broadcast the truth to every camera in the room. Mr. and Mrs. Yun. A voice from behind us. Smooth, female, familiar. I turned. Chloe. My sister stood there in crimson silk that clung to her like a second skin, blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders, a smile that could sell salvation to sinners. She looked perfect, untouchable. She looked like everything I'd never been allowed to be. Sophie. Her voice dripped false warmth. "I heard about your wedding. How romantic. A shotgun ceremony to a gangster. Very on brand for the family embarrassment." The insult landed exactly where she'd aimed it. Years of practice. Years of knowing precisely how to draw blood, without raising her voice. But I'd spent the last 2 weeks learning to be something other than invisible. I stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell her perfume. Expensive, cloying, the same scent she'd worn since we were teenagers. Close enough that I could see the micro-expression of fear that flickered across her perfect face. "Chloe," I said softly, "I've been looking for you." Her smile tightened. "I've been busy, killing Julian Yon, stealing $400 million, running a human trafficking ring using Juwon's shipping routes." The color drained from her face. Around us, the ambient noise of the gala continued. Laughter, clinking glasses. The string quartet in the corner playing something by Mozart. But in our small circle, the silence was absolute. "You can't prove any of that," Chloe whispered. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. The ledger of souls appeared. 53 entries of our father's sins, including the detailed notes on Chloe's operations. "Already sent to the FBI," I said. "And the New York Times, and the Washington Post, and CNN." I smiled. Also uploaded to WikiLeaks, just in case. Chloe's hand moved to her clutch. Fast. Practiced. Juwon was faster. He didn't draw a weapon. Didn't need to. Just shifted his weight fractionally, blocking her line of movement, his presence alone enough to freeze her in place. I wouldn't, he said quietly. Chloe's eyes darted around the room, looking for her people. Her backup. The snipers she'd positioned in the rafters with clear sightlines to the podium. Elena's team had neutralized them 20 minutes ago. It's over, I said. The trafficking network, the money laundering, the murder, all of it. You don't understand. Chloe's voice cracked. He was going to sell you, Sophie. Our own father. He was going to trade you like he traded your mother. I was trying to save you. By killing Julian? By running a trafficking ring that moved children? I had to survive. Her mask was cracking now, desperation bleeding through the perfect facade. You gotta be invisible. I had to be golden. Perfect. His trophy. Do you know what that's like? Being decoration? Being valued only for how you look in photographs? I stared at my sister. At the girl who'd had everything I'd wanted. The love, the attention, the belonging. At the monster she'd become to keep it. Yes, I said quietly. I know exactly what that's like. Then help me. She reached for my hand. Please. We're sisters. We can. The screens flickered. The campaign footage died. The patriotic music stopped. And the ledger of souls appeared on every screen in the ballroom. 53 names. 53 transactions. 20 years of evidence that Senator William Chase had been selling human beings to the highest bidder, including his own wife, including his own daughter. The room went silent. Then someone screamed. Chaos erupted. Guests scrambling for exits. Security rushing the podium. Cameras flashing like lightning strikes, as journalists realized they were witnessing the story of the decade. My father stood frozen at the podium, staring at the screens with the expression of a man watching his own execution. Then his eyes found me. Pure, undiluted, rage. You, he breathed. You did this. I stepped forward. Into the light. Into the cameras. Into the moment I'd been building toward since I was 8 years old, and realized my father looked at me like merchandise. Yes, I said clearly. I did this. He moved. Fast for a man with a failing heart. His hand went to his jacket, came out with a small pistol, the kind politicians kept for campaign trail security, aimed it at my chest. The room exploded with movement. Secret Service converging, Juwon reaching for his weapon, Elena shouting orders, but my father's finger was already on the trigger. Sophie, he said. I'm sorry. Then Juwon was there, moving between us with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd taken bullets before, who'd chosen, in that split second, that my life was worth more than his own. The gunshot was deafening. Juwon's body jerked. Blood bloomed across his chest. Bright, spreading, arterial. He fell. I screamed. Not a performance. Not calculated. Pure, animal terror as the man I loved collapsed at my feet. I dropped beside him, hands pressing against the wound, blood soaking through my white dress, hot and sticky and impossible. No. The word came out broken. No, no, no. Juwon's eyes found mine, dark amber going hazy. His hand touched my face, leaving streaks of crimson across my cheek. Sophie, he whispered. Run. Then his eyes closed. Something inside me broke. Not the quiet breaking from the war room. Not the cold death of love. This was loud, violent, the kind of breaking that remakes you into something new, something dangerous. I stood, turned to face my father. He still held the gun, but his hand was shaking, his face the color of old snow. Sophie, his voice cracked. I didn't mean. I walked toward him, slow, deliberate, my white dress painted red with Juwon's blood, my hands dripping, my face a mask of grief and fury. The room had gone silent again. Cameras recording, witnesses watching. Perfect. Give me the gun, Papa. Sophie, please. Give me the gun. He did. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe out of fear. Maybe because some part of him knew he deserved what was coming. I took the weapon, felt its weight, looked my father in the eyes. You sold my mother, I said clearly. For the cameras, For the world. You traded her to the Triad for $700,000. Then you raised me like an asset, planning to sell me the same way. That's not... It's in the ledger. I gestured to the screens. Line 47. Dr. Amara Chase. Delivered. Fulfilled. My father's face crumbled. I sold you, I continued, my voice steady despite the rage burning through my veins, because you made me believe I was worth nothing, that my only value was in cleaning up your disasters. Being invisible, being useful. I raised the gun. But I'm not invisible anymore. Sophie, don't. He lunged, tried to grab the weapon, tried to stop what he'd created. I pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the ballroom like judgment. My father fell. Blood spreading across the white marble floor, mixing with Juwon's, creating a pool of consequence. I stood over him, gun still raised, and felt nothing. No grief, no regret, no satisfaction, just the cold certainty that I'd done what needed to be done. Then I dropped the gun and screamed again. A performance worthy of an Oscar. Collapsed beside my father's body with tears streaming down my face, perfectly calculated for the cameras still recording. He tried to kill me, I sobbed. After everything, he tried to kill me. Security converged. Paramedics rushed in. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and through it all, I watched them load Juwon's body onto a stretcher, chest still and bloody, face peaceful. I watched them carry him away, and I smiled. The ambulance doors closed with a finality that echoed through my bones. I sat beside Juwon's stretcher, still covered in blood, his and my father's, hands shaking with adrenaline and carefully performed grief. The paramedic worked efficiently, checking vitals, adjusting equipment, speaking in the calm tones of someone who'd seen death before and knew its rhythms. Mrs. Yeon. His voice was gentle. I'm sorry, there's no pulse. I know. I reached down and pressed the release on Juwon's tactical vest. The Kevlar underneath was pristine. Ballistic rated, military grade. The blood was theatrical stage tech. Packets Elena had rigged that morning, designed to burst on impact and create the perfect visual for cameras. Juwon's eyes opened. The paramedic, one of Elena's people, grinned. Welcome back from the dead, sir. Juwon sat up slowly, peeling away the fake blood packets, wincing at the bruise already forming on his chest where the bullet had impacted the vest. His gaze found mine. Did it work? I laughed. The sound came out broken, halfway between sob and triumph. You're dead. My father's dead. I'm a tragic survivor who defended herself against her own father after he murdered her husband. I pulled out my phone, showed him the news alerts already flooding the screen. You're a hero who died protecting me. His smile was slow. Satisfied. Good. He reached for me, pulling me against his chest, despite the paramedics' protests about injuries and protocol. His heart beat steady and strong beneath my ear. Alive. He was alive. I'm never doing that again, I whispered against his skin. His hand tangled in my hair. You were perfect. I thought I lost you. I know. His voice was rough. I'm sorry, but we needed it clean. Self-defense. Justifiable. No legal complications. I pulled back to look at him. His face was pale beneath the golden skin. Dark circles under his eyes, but alive. Breathing. Real. I kissed him. Hard. Desperate. Tasting blood and sweat and survival. When we broke apart, the paramedic cleared his throat. We're approaching the safe house. FBI's waiting for debrief. The next 6 hours were a blur of federal agents and lawyers and carefully coordinated statements. Elena orchestrated it all with the precision of a conductor, turning the chaos of the gala into a narrative that painted Juwon as a martyred hero and me as a courageous survivor. Chloe was arrested on 17 counts, including murder, human trafficking, and racketeering. The surveillance footage from the factory raid, combined with the Ledger of Souls, gave prosecutors enough evidence to guarantee she'd never see daylight again. The senator's body was cremated after a quiet autopsy confirmed cause of death. Gunshot wound to the chest, fired in self-defense by his daughter after he'd murdered her husband. No one questioned it. The cameras had captured everything. I gave my statement in a private room with Juwon sitting beside me, his hand never leaving mine. Told them about the cathedral wedding, the forced marriage, discovering my father's trafficking network. My voice broke in all the right places. My tears fell on cue. By dawn, we were free to go. Elena found us in the safe house kitchen, drinking coffee that tasted like ash and exhaustion. It's done, she said simply. Chloe's in federal custody. The trafficking network's being dismantled. The syndicate's nuclear division is officially off the board. She looked at Juan. You're officially retired. Dead, he corrected. Dead, she agreed. Which means you're free. Both of you. She pulled an envelope from her jacket and slid it across the table. New identities, new accounts. Enough money to disappear anywhere in the world. She paused. Or you could stay. Stay? I opened the envelope. Inside were passports, documents, keys. The administration owes you. Both of you. She looked at me. You just took down the most corrupt senator in modern history and exposed a trafficking ring that spanned 3 continents. That kind of leverage doesn't expire. What are you offering? Juwan's voice was careful. Legitimacy. Elena's smile was sharp. The senator's seat needs to be filled. Special election in 6 months. The party needs a candidate who can't be bought. She looked at me. Someone who knows where all the bodies are buried. The words hung in the air. I thought about it. About the girl who'd spent 26 years being invisible, fixing scandals, cleaning up messes. About the woman who'd just burned her father's empire to ash and walked away clean. About the power that came with being seen. I'm not a politician, I said finally. You're something better. Elena stood. You're someone who actually knows how the system works. Think about it. She left. Juwan and I sat in silence, watching dawn break through the safe house windows. Do you want it? He asked finally. The power. The position. I want to make sure no one else gets sold. I turned to face him. I want to burn down every network like my father's. Every man who thinks he can trade women like commodities. His hand cupped my face. Then we burn them. Together. 6 months later, I stood in the Oval Office, not as president. I declined to run for the Senate seat, despite Elena's persuasion. Too visible, too constrained by ethics committees and press scrutiny. Instead, I'd accepted a different position, chief of staff to the newly elected President Martinez, a reform candidate who'd won in a landslide after the exposure of the trafficking networks. The power behind the throne. The one who knew where the bodies were buried because I'd buried most of them myself. The private side door, the one used only by Secret Service, opened. Elena had cleared the floor minutes ago. No one would see him. Juwan walked in, officially dead but very much alive, moving through the shadows of my new empire with the same efficiency he'd moved through the syndicate. He locked the door, crossed to the desk, where I sat reviewing appropriations for a new anti-trafficking task force. Sat on the edge of the desk with that familiar predatory grace. Mrs. Yon, he said. You have a meeting in 10 minutes. I know. I didn't look up from the documents. His hand caught my chin, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. So we should make this quick. His mouth found mine. Hungry, possessive, tasting like the coffee he'd been drinking and the danger we'd left behind. I stood, pressing against him, hands finding the buttons of his shirt. We're in the Oval Office, I murmured against his lips. I know. His hands found my waist, lifting me onto the desk, scattering papers. Makes it better. Someone could. No one's coming. His mouth moved to my throat, teeth grazing. Elena's running interference. We have exactly 8 minutes. His hands slid up my thighs, pushing my skirt higher. Then don't waste them. He laughed against my skin. Never. What followed was fast, fierce, desperate. The union of 2 people who'd survived hell and claimed heaven on the other side. His hands on my body, my nails in his back. Both of us moving with the synchronized precision we'd learned through violence and perfected through love. When we finished, I was breathless and disheveled, my carefully styled hair coming loose, my lipstick smeared. Perfect. Juwan fixed his shirt with the efficiency of practice, helped me smooth my skirt, tucked a loose curl behind my ear. You're beautiful, he said quietly. I'm a mess. You're mine. His thumb traced my lower lip. And you're magnificent. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Chase, your 9 o'clock is here. I pressed the button. Send them in. Juwan moved to the shadows near the window. Invisible again. My secret weapon. The door opened. Senators. Appropriations Committee. Men who thought they held power. I smiled. Let them think it. I knew the truth. Power wasn't in the throne. It was in the shadows. In the network I'd built. In the man who stood behind me, watching, protecting, partnering. In the dynasty we'd forged from blood and fire and love. The senator had wanted a warranty, a guarantee against loss. Instead, he'd created a queen, and queens didn't just survive, they conquered. The meeting lasted an hour. I negotiated, compromised, pushed through funding for 3 new safe houses and a federal task force targeting trafficking networks. When they left, I was alone with Juan again. He emerged from the shadows, pulled me into his arms. "You're terrifying," he said. "Good." His laugh was warm against my hair. "I love you." The words still surprised me, still felt new despite hearing them every day for 6 months. "I love you too." We stood there in the Oval Office, wrapped in each other, wrapped in power, wrapped in the future we'd built from the ashes of our pasts. He'd asked for a warranty. I'd given him a dynasty, and we were just getting started.